You thought Patrick Queen was done talking about the Baltimore Ravens? You are sorely mistaken. We talk about what he had to say about his former team as the Ravens and Steelers matchup in Week 16. That plus Tom Brady continues to gush over Lamar Jackson. All that and more coming up next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens. We are your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, and I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens both a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We are free and available for you on all podcasting platforms. That includes in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel. Also in audio form, where you can follow along and subscribe over there as well. We're a 5-day-a-week plus more daily Ravens podcast, so news, analysis, updates, the whole 9 yards. Baltimore Ravens wise, we have you covered daily on Locked On Ravens. Today's Purple Friday edition of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. The Ravens have a game tomorrow. Still throwing me off, the whole Saturday thing compared to Sunday. They play the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here to break that down with me is from the Ravens Talk podcast. It is Sam Njoku. Sam, biggest game of the season for the Ravens, no doubt, as you are trying to get tied up with Pittsburgh in the AFC North record-wise. And just, you can't, if you're Baltimore, you cannot let your most heated rival celebrate your division crown on your home turf. You can't do it. I think Roquan put it best. This is a check your manhood game for both teams. And the Ravens, I think after the history over the last few years, Sam, in this rivalry, you got to get right against this team.
Yeah, I was there for the AFC Championship game last year, having the Chiefs hoist the Lamar Hunt Trophy in your home city, in your stadium was definitely left a sour taste in my mouth. So I think this will be almost as bad, having your hated Pittsburgh Steelers rival win the AFC North Championship in your home. There's no way I think fans would lose it. But a lot more questions after a loss like that, of course. But yeah, there's no way the Ravens can allow that to happen.
Yeah, we know the history recently. The Ravens have lost 8 of their last 9 to Pittsburgh. Obviously, there are some circumstances that go along with that, but to have that record against your most hated rival, it's rough. And the Ravens, Sam, have certainly echoed that they want to get the job done this time around. I know there's one thing between talking and actually going out there on the field and showing it, so obviously they got to back up their words, but there is a mindset about this game that is, look, they got to win it at all costs. But on the other side, Pittsburgh, of course, they want to wrap up the division, give maybe their players some more time to rest. Obviously, we'll talk about the injury report for both teams as the show goes on. But Patrick Queen, Sam, Raven legend, Patrick Queen, not really, but Raven legend, Patrick Queen. Look, if we thought he was done talking about the Ravens, if on FanDuel there were odds, will Patrick Queen say something about the Ravens this week? I would have bet yes on, put the house down on Patrick Queen doing that. And look what happened. Patrick Queen was obviously asked about making his return to Baltimore for the first time since signing with the Steelers. And he said, quote, I'm going to get a whole lot of abuse and booze and stuff, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't want it any other way. And then kind of took the approach of like, hey, I'm over the Ravens. I'm over it. He said, I'm over it. We clinched a playoff spot. There are bigger things to look at down the road. Right now, this is a big game. It's a division game, a chance to get T-shirts and hats. I'm all for it, all for the rivalry, but I'm over my old team. This really was, Sam, like watching a breakup happen in real time, like legitimately for Patrick Queen, right? Where he was saying all this stuff, like, I'm still not over it. I still am like processing my emotions and figuring it out. They didn't want me, like this, that, and the other. We heard all those points in the offseason. He's trying to be the villain. And now he's like, you know what? I'm over it now. Now I can move on. I'm with someone new. I can fully put my focus here. I think literally we just watched the, whatever you want to call it, 5 stages of a breakup happen with Patrick Queen in real time. Now we've gotten to the point where he's just like, I'm done with it. And hopefully everybody else can be done with it too, because I know for some people it's been almost exhausting hearing Patrick Queen talk about the Ravens when, of course, he hasn't been with the team since March.
Yeah, and to give Patrick Queen some grace, it was the reporter that asked him the question. He wasn't just going out there and saying it. So I'll give him that. But, I mean, from my point of view, I almost forgot the guy was on the team. I mean, I completely forgot that Patrick Queen was even a Steeler until the quote came out. So that tells me what type of game he's had. I mean, he's had some strong some strong games for the Steelers, but overall, I don't know if he's been much of a difference maker, in my opinion. I mean, he did have that strip fumble in that Ravens Steelers game. Of course, he was right with emotion due to the breakup, as you mentioned. But overall, I think, Ravens fans, I'm pretty sure they don't really care. They got bigger fish to fry than Patrick Queen and his I don't care attitude. We know you care, buddy. We know it's a tough breakup. Your first girlfriend being the Ravens, and they cut you loose. And in his defense, also, the guy that they brought in to replace him hasn't been that stellar, and they've made some changes for the better. The Ravens have, at least later on this season. But overall, the Ravens aren't really worried about Patrick Queen. I'm sure Patrick Queen would love to get the job done in Baltimore's ticket to the man or the girl that left him at the altar or whatever. But yeah. I think it's just a whole bunch of nothing. Let Patrick Queen be Patrick Queen. We know how soft he can be in these type of deals. I'm sure he's on social media having the time of his life. But I don't think much of it. He's going to talk, and we'll see what happens on Saturday.
This does feel pretty one-sided, where there hasn't really been a lot of Ravens or people associated with the Ravens players, coaches talking about Patrick Queen. It's been more of Patrick Queen talking about the Ravens. And yes, he gets asked the questions, and obviously he will answer them, right? He's someone that, again, wears his emotions on his sleeve. We all know that about PQ. But you did make an interesting point, Sam, and I want to ask you about this, because with the Ravens, there was always a question when Patrick Queen left. How much are they going to miss him? Are they going to feel his presence? Are they going to need somebody? Is Trent Simpson going to step up? How's that going to work? We're now essentially almost done with the year. We've had a pretty large sample size with Trenton Simpson, some of the other guys they've brought in. Roquan Smith obviously had his struggles early in the season. Do you think Baltimore has missed Patrick Queen more than you anticipated them missing him? Do you think that he was a bigger loss than you thought he was? Or was this right around what you thought it was going to be once he left?
I thought that there'd be a little bit better, the duo of Trenton Simpson and Roquan, but I would say, you can't spend too much money on inside linebacker. You got Roquan Smith, you got your guy. So the Ravens had no choice but to let PQ walk. I don't think there was any chance ever, even if PQ was half as well, 50% as good as he is now, extra. I think that they still would have let him walk, just because you can't tie that much money into that position. But I think the Ravens have been okay. I think what you're looking for maybe is some more synergy from one player. I think the Ravens are playing a kind of a linebacker by committee approach, and you like to have some more solidness at that position. And PQ's loss definitely does relieve them of that fortune. But I think all in all, it's what I expected. I didn't expect too much. I think the Ravens are still good at stopping the run. They're still good with Roquan Smith. And whatever linebacker is there, he still has support there. So I think the money that was maybe justified by the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think we had to ask the question, are the Steelers getting out of PQ what they expected given the contract? I don't know. He's just, using the word that Shannon Sharp uses, jag, just another guy is what I would say. Maybe a little bit better than just another guy, but certainly not a Pro Bowl level guy for that team, in my opinion, based on what I've seen on film. Of course, he's had moments, he's had flashes, something that we saw out of PQ a lot of times throughout his tenure in Baltimore, but nothing consistent, nothing that would make me say, oh, the Ravens should have definitely kept him. Nah, I think they made the right call.
Yeah, he definitely struggled early in the season. He really had to find his footing, and actually it was him and Geno Stone that was getting eviscerated by their fan bases. Now, Geno, that's been pretty consistent. PQ, I think, is shored up a little more. A little bit. But even so, I think that there was a narrative out there that the Ravens weren't going to miss PQ at all. That was never going to be true. But I just think that for what the Ravens had, you're exactly right, Sam. The Ravens made a choice. It was Roquan, it was PQ. They decided to pay Roquan. That was the right decision. And obviously PQ can go and be the guy. And who knows? Maybe it was a thing about now he's not overshadowed by Roquan. PQ made a point about that back in March too. So it's just been all this stuff. But we know that PQ brings energy, for sure, but he's kind of taking the nonchalant approach here. I think the Ravens are going to come, Sam, with a lot of energy in this game, especially with how they've talked all week. Zay saying the pass defense for Pittsburgh does nothing special. Marlon's saying all this different stuff. Lamar, Kyle Hamilton. We're getting quotes from everybody. I think the team that brings more energy in this game will win, and I think that Baltimore is the team that has their back against the wall in this situation. If Pittsburgh loses this game, there's still a shot that they can win the North. They've clinched the playoffs. Like, all that is fine. But for Baltimore, if you lose this game, your AFC North title hopes are gone. Now, you're still going to make the playoffs. I'd be floored if they did not.
Right.
But it feels like when, you talk about a team that's backed into a corner and that team playing with more desperate energy in a good way, I think we're going to see that from Baltimore. Plus, I just think they're going to be fired up in general.
Yeah, and I think you made a great point with the team that's most fired up. That Pittsburgh Steelers game, the first meeting, the Steelers were definitely the more fired up team. We talked about PQ. I think the team was rallying around that, trying to get PQ that win against his former team. And I think a lot of that played into the Steelers being able to come in there and get the job done. Some of that also was because at the time, people didn't realize or know if the Steelers were frauds or not. And I'm still, on the boat. Well, maybe there might be frauds. I'm still not 100% convinced. But that's neither here nor there. The point is the Steelers definitely had that energy in the first meeting. The first meeting didn't go the way the Ravens thought. And some of it is, I still think there's some lingering effects from that Eagles game that have Ravens coaches and players reminiscing about the AFC Championship. I think this team has turned the corner. Obviously, you're going to look good against the New York Giants, but I still think, based on what I saw in that game, the Ravens could build upon that performance and could be a huge contender for that championship.
Yeah, and that's what you hoped they would do against the Giants. We're not sitting up here and telling anybody, Sam, that the Giants are the best team in the NFL and they're contenders. And wow, what an impressive win against the top team. No, of course not. They're one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the NFL right now. But you did what you were supposed to do. You had a lot of good come out of that game, some bad, but I think, again, you just got to roll with what was good and try to fix the bad. That's been what's going on here. And coming up in the second part of the show, Lamar Jackson is just on an absolute tear, another MVP-worthy season, and he's getting a lot of praise from current, former players, legendary players. Tom Brady, who's been one of Lamar's biggest supporters, continues to gush over him. So be sure to stay tuned. We'll talk about what was said in Lamar's season. Stay tuned. A lot to get to on the show. First, the show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Earn your game all season long on PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. And I love going on PrizePicks, seeing everything they have to offer over there, and make your holidays bigger and brighter with PrizePicks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks. PrizePicks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Join now because this holiday season, PrizePicks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. If you think James Cook will get more than 60 yards or Joe Burrow getting more than 1.5 touchdowns, cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on PrizePicks. So for me, I think for this Ravens and Steelers game, Lamar Jackson more on the passing yards, Derrick Henry more on the rushing yards. I might be going with those over on PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDON to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDON to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. And the show is brought to you by the College Football Playoff. It's that time of year. The College Football Playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the College Football Playoff begins December 21st, starting with the College Football Playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. We're back our second segment, Locked On Ravens with Sam Njoku. I am Kevin Ostreicher, bringing you Friday episode Ravens Talk. The Ravens play on Saturday, so tomorrow, and I did a crossover Thursday, Sam, with Chris Carter, Locked On Steelers, and he said, don't turn your TVs on Sunday expecting the Ravens to go on and play. You're not going to see any. You're not going to see the Ravens. You make sure 4:30 Saturday. It's throwing me off. Saturday, that's when the game is. And Lamar Jackson, we know the conversation points around Lamar. I know you put this out. It's been a whole thing about Lamar and his actual availability for these Steelers games, where he has only played in one home game started in one home game against the Steelers over the course of his career. That was back in 2020 when there were only 4,000 fans in the stadium because that was when the pandemic was going on. So Lamar has never played in front of a full M&T Bank Stadium against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's never played in both games in a single season against the Steelers, or started those games in the course of his career as well. He's a player that obviously, that if you're talking about what team has been Lamar's kryptonite, what defense has given Lamar the most issues over the course of his career, it has been the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now against the Giants, he did what he was supposed to do, like we talked about. 290 through the air, 5 passing touchdowns. We got another Jackson 5 in the house, which everybody absolutely loves. And Tom Brady, he does his 3 stars of the week. Lamar Jackson, for a 4th time, was on this list. And Tom Brady obviously has been supporting Lamar Jackson really since it feels like forever.
Yeah.
And he went out of his way again and said, quote, he had more TD passes than incompletions in the game. That's ridiculous. Incredible stuff. Lamar, I can't wait to call your game against a tough Steelers defense. Sam, you can tell like the genuine love Tom Brady has for Lamar. Like, you know, some people just get up there and say something to say something like, oh, hey, yeah, let's acknowledge this. Like, of course, it was great. Okay, let's move on. Tom Brady legitimately loves Lamar Jackson. And that to me is so cool because obviously Tom Brady is someone that Lamar looks up to immensely. You know, when Lamar talks about, you know, what he wants to be and how he wants his career to go, he said he wants to be the Tom Brady of Baltimore. You know, he wants to win championships like Tom Brady. It's so cool to see the mutual love and respect these guys have for each other. And look, when you talk about MVP, Sam, we see all these talking heads and pundits talk, okay, it's Josh Allen this, it's Josh Allen that. When you get Tom Brady on your side, Aaron Rodgers had stuff to say, Peyton Manning's giving him the stamp of approval. You're getting these legends. I'm going to go with Lamar's peers as opposed to some of the other conversation we've heard over the course of this season.
Yeah, I'm just going to call it out. If you know ball, then you're pretty much aware of what Lamar Jackson is doing and how he compares to his peers. And right now he is one of one. He is getting things done on the ground. The Ravens are being played differently than any other team in the league, and it starts with number 8. And I'm sure Tom Brady just looks at the film and says, this guy is freaking amazing. I mean, he's making every throw that Joe Burrow can make. He's making every run that Josh Allen can make. No one can do both as well as Lamar Jackson. It is truly remarkable to see what he does on film, and especially in that Giants game, he was making every single throw imaginable. It's very impressive to see his growth, and now that he's beginning to trust himself in those situations when the play breaks down, using those God-given talents to your ability, to your advantage, and making these defensive pay when they do come out in certain defensive fronts is going to play huge dividends for them. So I'm sure Tom Brady realizes it. You know, Peyton Manning realizes it. All of these guys are starting to understand it. And yeah, the media is going to be the media and they're going to look at the narratives. But when it comes to the play on the field between the lines, there's nobody better right now than Lamar Jackson in the shows.
Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, both guys incredibly deserving, right? I don't think the race is over, and I don't want to discredit what Josh is doing because he has been incredible, as has Lamar Jackson. So if you're calling the race over, honestly, if you called it over for Lamar, that also would not be true. Both guys still have a shot to win. But obviously the narrative has been, okay, well, Josh Allen, he won. And Josh Allen, he 5 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns here. Okay, now he's the MVP. And then you look at the actual stats, and Lamar still is ahead of him in every single category except rushing touchdowns. So to me, I think both players are incredible. But we should not be discrediting Lamar Jackson because Josh Allen is having a great season. We should be hyping up both guys. Instead, it has kind of been, okay, let's not acknowledge Lamar. And let's just dive in. And Lamar has gotten acknowledgement, right? You know, we've heard from a bunch of different people, RG3, a bunch of former Ravens, actually, Dominique Foxworth and others as well. But I think Lamar's been incredible. And part of that, Sam, we talked last week about maybe Lamar's going to run a little bit more now that his mom gave him a piece of her mind. And obviously Lamar said that he was still antsy. Nothing's changed. He's ready to get out there. He had a couple of really nice big runs in this game, and you could kind of see the shift a little bit in what not only the game plan was, but in Lamar's mindset. And of course, there was the one where he was holding his pants up and saying, "Hey, man, I'm not going to get Derrick Henry here right now on TV." But I thought that was a really good thing the Ravens did to incorporate Lamar Jackson's legs into the game plan more, for Lamar to take off a little bit. I thought that it was a big shift and a really important one, especially when you're trying to keep your defensive opponents on their toes as much as you can. If you take away that aspect, like we talked about last week, Sam, it's going to let the defense off of the hook. I thought the Ravens, they left no stone unturned against the Giants, and hopefully that's what we see moving forward.
Yeah, and I'll be very surprised if we don't see that continue in this game. TJ Watt, if he can get things going against Rosengarten, then yeah, it's going to be a potential for some breakdown of plays. And sometimes Lamar would sit there in the pocket, maybe move up a step or two to try and stay in the passing moment a little bit longer than he might need to be. And now I'm seeing the Lamar Jackson, at least in 1 week worth of film, where, okay, the play's breaking down. Where's the running lane? Let me go ahead and make something happen. If there's no running lane, then yes, he's going to hold on to the ball and try and make something happen or try and throw the football away. But if there's a clear lane, this guy's going to go, and that makes the Steelers' job all the more difficult in this upcoming contest.
And I think the big thing with Pittsburgh, Sam, is the Steelers' run defense is great. I mean, we talked about that the last time they played. Obviously, that rang true for both sides. But the Steelers' pass defense does have some weaknesses. And they have a couple of players that might not play in this game. Pittsburgh on the year, their pass defense in terms of net yards per attempt, they're 14th in the league, so kind of a middling unit. But they do tend to give up some intermediate and even some deep stuff. And we heard Zay Flowers talk about how, look, that pass defense, nothing stresses them out there. Zay hasn't had that big breakout game against Pittsburgh, did score the last time that they played, one of his 2 receptions. Yeah. But do you feel like this is an opportunity for Lamar Jackson against a middling pass defense, a defense that's given him trouble, to make a statement? Or do you think that this Pittsburgh defense just has his number and it's more complicated than that?
I think this is a great opportunity for Lamar to be at home, to get things going. Look, the Ravens are a run-first team. I mean, we all know that. So the Ravens may try and start passing the ball. They did something similar in last year's game against the Steelers, where the Ravens dropped all those passes. They started off the game throwing the football, and they had success if they were holding on to that rock. So it might be a situation where, hey, we know your front 4, your front 7 is formidable. Let's get things going through the air first, and then open up those run lanes. Either way, Lamar Jackson is going to control the game, decide what happens at the line of scrimmage. This is a big opportunity for him. Yes, there are some injury concerns for the Ravens, some guys that may not suit up, but he still has so much depth with those tight ends and receivers. Could be a big day for him. Could be.
Yeah, and I think for me, when you talk about those injuries, there's a long list of wide receivers that might not play in this game for the Ravens. But on the other side, the Steelers are dealing with injury problems of their own. So coming up, we'll talk about both sides of that, as well as how the Ravens match up with the Steelers and vice versa. Stay tuned. Lots to get to on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, Introduction to Free Market Economics, and so much more. Maybe you want a course on the Great American Story. Hillsdale has that for you as well. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon and register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. We are back, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Ostreicher and Sam Njoku still rocking out with you here on this Purple Friday. Again, appreciate everybody for being here today, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen each and every day. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button in video form on YouTube. Follow along in audio form as well. We did hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube on Saturday. So that was a really big accomplishment for me, and I appreciate, again, all the support. And I will hold up my little sticky note, Wilt Chamberlain.
Oh, my gosh.
Little 10,000, like Wilt held up the 100 on the piece of paper. This is my Wilt Chamberlain 10,000 there. So Dixie Cup outfit is on the way. I know the holiday shipping makes things weird. I have no idea when it's going to get here, for being honest, but it is on the way. It has been ordered. And so I appreciate all the support in video form, plus in audio form too. It's the same show if you want to watch or listen to the show. Sam, you mentioned the injury concerns for both sides here. Let's start with the Ravens, because this is Locked On Ravens after all. Rashad Bateman spotted in a boot in the locker room after practice. Not a great sign. John Harbaugh was very not in the mood to answer injury questions on Thursday, as usually he does. He wants to keep things as close to the vest as possible and not give any competitive advantage away. But Bateman not ruled out for the game. He actually is questionable. Now, Nelson Aguilar is also questionable. He has not practiced all week with a concussion, but John Harbaugh did say that there is a shot that he will clear protocol by the time Saturday rolls around, and that will be in time for game time. I think actually, does it have to be 24 hours before? Is that what the rule is? Okay, so Friday. Yeah. So today we will know if Nelson Aguilar will play or not, or if he clears or not. Only 2 players ruled out for the Ravens. Jalen Armour-Davis, who will not play, and Deontay Johnson, who we know will not play in this game and maybe future games as well. But this feels like an opportunity missed by Deontay Johnson, first of all. Many opportunities missed in terms of him having a big role like he wanted, maybe doing some work for him on a new contract. If he produced, that would do big wonders for him. Instead, now he just looks bad, and everybody looks bad, and that's just a terrible situation. You do have guys like Justice Hill, Adisa Isaac, Sanusi Kane, TJ Tampa, who is back from IR now, Ardarius Washington, all those guys, no injury designations. 2 other players questionable, Daniel Falele, who was limited all week with a knee injury, and also Adafe Owe, who popped up on the injury report on Wednesday with an ankle. He did limited practice back-to-back days. He is also questionable. The big thing here, Sam, I'm not going to bury the lead. It is the wide receiver position. I mean, if Bateman can't go, if Aguilar can't go, we know Johnson's not going. All of a sudden, you're down to Zay Flowers, Tylan Wallace, Tez Walker. You and I will probably be out there on Saturday catching passes from Lamar, so suit up. You got to get ready.
Yeah.
This is a situation where whether it's Anthony Miller who gets called up or someone else gets called up, that's a thin position. I feel like if that does happen, worst case scenario happens, I think you use Isaiah Likely a lot more and use him as a pass game option, especially with how Mark Andrews is balled out. I think you can use Likely maybe in the slot a little bit more, 2 tight end sets a little bit more, and work play action off of that. But how concerned are you about Rashad Bateman? And how concerned are you if the Ravens don't have 3 of their wide receivers on Saturday?
I'm kind of concerned. When the Ravens were playing the Eagles, you saw a clear distinction of level of play from when Rashad Bateman was on the field to when he was not. So that is my concern. You mentioned Isaiah Likely being a potential candidate to get some more snaps with his if Rashad Bateman is unable to go. And I agree with that sentiment. I think they will play a more 2 tight end set, but really it's not really a tight end set because they'll use Likely as if he was a slot receiver. So I'm not 100% concerned with it. I wish Rashad Bateman was out there because he does have some skill set advantages that he could exploit against that Steelers defense. I'm actually more leaning towards the offensive line. Daniel Falele, was limited in practice all week. I wonder what the line will look like if he's unable to go. We know that Ben Cleveland's in Harbaugh's doghouse, so to speak. So we'll see if he's just a plug and play or if they shift the line over, move Macario to the right side and then plug in Jones or someone else in that left side, or even Voorhees. So it's very interesting how the Ravens decide to do this. So I'll be looking at that more than anything to see how the protection goes, the run game goes. But all in all, I think the Ravens are struggling, and they would love to have had a Deontay Johnson that was good in the head, clearing the head to get out there, because this is what they brought him in here for, this exact situation, and he fumbled the bag big time. So hopefully this is a lesson learned for Deontay. I'm not sure if there's any coming back from this. We'll see in the coming weeks, but the Ravens are definitely thin at wide receiver, and I think Likely will be a huge part of what they do because of it.
Yeah. We know the Ravens needed a depth wide receiver at the deadline. I'm not sure, and I've seen this theory floated before, that I'm not sure Baltimore expected a player like Deontay, who's that talented on the field, to be available for as little as he was. And at that point, Baltimore's like, well, hey, this is free money. Turns out it was free drama for you. So there was risk reward. The risk clearly is outweighing the reward at this point, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. But on the other side, Sam, the Steelers have injury problems of their own. The biggest one being George Pickens will not play in this game after pulling a hamstring a couple of weeks ago. That is I literally cannot overstate this. Massive loss for the Steelers, considering we saw what it looked like last week against the Eagles for Pittsburgh without George Pickens. The pass offense was atrocious. I believe they're 32nd in the league. They're last in the league in a lot of major passing categories when George Pickens does not play. And it now leaves them with a receiver room of Calvin Austin, Mike Williams, Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller, Ben Skoranek. I mean, with the way the secondaries played, Sam, the Ravens secondaries played over the last month, who's that scaring? Who is that scaring? Genuinely. If the Ravens lose to Pittsburgh with that wide receiver group being trotted out there for the Steelers, there are no excuses whatsoever. TJ Watt will play in this game. There's no injury designation. He's going to play. But another interesting one here is Justin Fields will not play in this game, who obviously the Steelers like to use as a change of pace player and throwing defenses off. So the Steelers will not have that option available. But, man, I just keep looking at George Pickens being out. And I'm kind of rubbing my hands together here because this Ravens defense has found something over this last month. And without your top offensive weapon in there for Pittsburgh, it might be an ugly offensive day for the Steelers against this Ravens defense.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And I mean, again, this cannot be overstated enough. You've seen what the Steelers look like with George Pickens on without him on the field, and you've seen him on the field. What this does to the Steelers offense. I mean, the entire vertical pass game is definitely centered around George Pickens. And not just him winning the route battle, just him being able to go and grab something. Maybe a ill-advised throw by Russell Wilson, maybe an ill-advised play call by the Steelers. And George Pickens just makes it happen. He's that talented of a receiver. And without him, it is going to be a struggle. I genuinely do not know what the Steelers' plan is going to be in this game. Obviously, they're going to use the run game to set up Russell Wilson. That's been their MO the entire season. But the run game has struggled for the Steelers as of late. They're averaging 3 yards a carry on the ground with Najee Harris. And against the Philadelphia Eagles, he was atrocious. And against the Ravens, I expect the exact same thing because the Ravens are going to use their big guys up front and use their linebackers to really make sure that the run is not going to be a factor and count on their corners to stop Calvin Austin and Mike Williams. I mean, that's literally it. And you have Kyle Hamilton back there. This is going to be bad. I mean, if the Steelers win this game, they deserve it because they are looking horrendous without George Pickens and Justin Fields. Great point. I think the Ravens really struggled to stop him, especially in those edge routes. And some of that was because at the time Roquan Smith was out with the injury, but still his presence is felt in those matchups, those certain situations on 3rd and short, 4th and short. So not having him is a big deal. I'm glad you mentioned it. But yeah, this offense is not looking good.
Yeah, and kind of going along with that, I am curious because let's get into the prediction part of the show here. I'm curious overall your thoughts of how the Ravens match up with the Steelers, how good you're feeling about that, and how you feel like this game is going to go. And one thing I'm watching here, Sam, is the penalties for the Ravens. I mean, this has continued to be an issue. Obviously, 12 against the Giants. They rank dead last in nearly every statistical penalty category against that there is. Penalties against, net penalties, yards against, like everything. You got to shore that up. But I just, with the injury situation in Pittsburgh right now, plus the fact that they might not have 2 of their secondary members as well, I feel pretty confident in Baltimore winning this game.
I was going to pick the Steelers to lose, even with George Pickens on the field. I just don't think. I mean, I mentioned this the first contest. The Ravens are just a better football team. I mean, it is what it is. You can't have 10 penalties. You can't have 3 turnovers against an NFL team and expect to win no matter how bad or how good a team is. So a lot of that goes to Pittsburgh being able to force those turnovers. Do I expect the Ravens to turn the ball over 3 times? Probably not very likely. Do I expect them to have penalties? Yeah, I think that's just this team right now. I don't expect them to change much. It's week 16. They've had 16 weeks to get it together. They haven't. So they're a penalized team. So that it is what it is in that regard. But overall, no George Pickens, 50, maybe 75% healthy TJ Watt, no Justin Fields. Your secondary's banged up. All signs point to the Ravens getting the job done. And remember, you mentioned it. This is the first time Lamar's actually played against a Pittsburgh Steelers team in Baltimore with a full crowd. A lot of emotions, AFC North title on the line. I got to take the Ravens. And at first I was thinking it's going to be a 3-point contest like it usually is, but how can I go anywhere but at least minimum 7 points? So I'll go Ravens win 27-13. I think the Ravens win big. That George Pickens news pretty much solidified it for me. No offense to speak of. I do not expect the Steelers to have much of a game here. Yeah,
I'm not expecting a lot of points in Pittsburgh either. I gave him 17 to be generous, but that feels very generous to me. Yes. I'm going to go 24-17 Ravens. I just feel like this is the game. You know, you can get a lot of stuff on your side here in terms of the football guys and just saying, hey, please just give us one win against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that would be a big one because obviously Pittsburgh has to turn around and play Kansas City on Christmas and the Ravens have to go down to Houston. So I'm expecting a Ravens win here. But of course, we'll see how the injury situation plays out for both teams as we get closer to kickoff on Saturday, not Sunday, Saturday. So be sure to, again, keep it locked in here on Locked On Ravens. Sam, appreciate you as always for stopping by, hopping on, talking Ravens football. Please tell people where they can find you and what you're working on.
All right. Yeah, you can find me on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. The podcast is out there, Ravens Talk Podcast. We just had a show drop today. We had Mark Clayton, former Ravens wide receiver, on the show. He came and talked about the Steelers matchup and as well some Deontay Johnson, his thoughts on the issue between the Ravens and Deontay. So go ahead and check it out. You can also find me on Instagram or Twitter X at Ravens Talk Pod. Find me there. I always dropping memes or news or anything like that just to keep the news cycle going as the Ravens battle for that AFC North Championship.
Man, you want funny Ravens posts? Sam is your guy. Be sure to check him out. The links to all of his work will be in the description down below. Sam, appreciate you as always again. And thank everybody today for tuning into Locked On Ravens. Of course, on the way up, you should hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube in video form and follow along and subscribe in audio form as well. Coming up tomorrow, it's our game day episodes. The game is on Saturday, so we'll be diving into our final preview for the Ravens and Steelers matchup. Stay tuned. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.